Is this thing working? Testing? Okay, it works. My name is Simon, and this is log 1 of trying to get into the mind of a killer and or psychopath. I am a psychology major. I majored in it in college. My name is Simon Theodore Bumbleberry, and I'll take you through the history of a murderer and try to get into their mind. The first case is the first one I'll be working on as a way to show my new profession. Is a case I wanted to study for years. The case of the butcher. Now, for those who don't know, the butcher has existed for a very long time. A lot of people that talk about the butcher never say the difference between him and his copycat killer. He has a copycat killer, which I'll get into that later. So, Oregon. Oregon, 1939. A killer known as the butcher starts being more and more, getting more and more notoriety. 1940s hit. His popularity skyrockets. He becomes famous in the 1940s. However, we know the butcher, at least from the research I've made, has been around since the 1920s. Maybe even before that, with newsletters and articles talking about the butcher. But he wasn't as famous. He became famous in the 1950s. In the 1940s. And his crime spree, his killings ended in 1999. We'll go into that later. The butcher's MO was very difficult to tell by. Now, we don't know who the butcher was. We never got it. We never saw him. There were no physical descriptions of him. He was very careful, very precise with his work. Some people even say he was of the supernatural, whether he was or was not. I say he's not, because that's a load of malarkey. There's no such thing as the supernatural. So, then comes in the copycat killer. He becomes famous in the year of 2010 onto this year, which is 2026. Meaning that this copycat killer has been around for I don't know how long, but seems to be either very old or very young. For all we know, it could be multiple copycat killers. Some of them we've never even caught the face of. Hold on, let me look through my notes. Maybe I have the years wrong. That was the case of... Alright, my bad. The copycat butcher killer was, gained notoriety, the copycat gained notoriety in 2020. It's been 6 years. He's been operating for 6 years. We don't know how long he's been operating before he became famous. We just know that he is famous. He became famous in 2020, and now it is 2026. Now, of course, there's a difference between the copycat killer and the butcher himself. For an example, MO. MO is, well, very simple. The copycat butcher likes to, well, chop up his victims into pieces and put them in a fridge. That's pretty much it. With the original from the 1940s butcher, he was more precise, less clue giving. He would leave bodies out to rot. He would never put them in a fridge. He would never make sure that they were constantly well kept, which made him such a hard target to catch, especially since the fact most psychologists would use gender or the way a certain person acted before they died to, well, put a psychological evaluation on a killer. For example, if the killer is mostly known for killing women, well, we know that the psychologist can make an estimable a very good guess of this person probably in his past has had either an abusive mother or just had trouble with women in general. With the original Butcher, however, he had, at least from what I can understand, no specific target. He was I guess, an equal opportunity killer who basically killed whoever he wanted. Then again, most of the people's bodies that were found were John Doe's or Jane Doe's. Gender couldn't be specified. Sometimes they'd find a rotting body. Other times they'd find a non-rotten body. By the time they got to some bodies, they were already skeletons. By the time they got to other bodies, they'd had enough flesh and blood to at least know what they looked like, but not enough to identify them. And this was the 1940s, so tech wasn't as popular. He was, of course, he didn't stop his killing until 1999, but he still hasn't been caught to this day. We have no clue who he was or what he was. With the copycat killer, he had targets. He's more like the famous Zodiac killer, which I'll go into detail way later on. But the copycat butcher usually attacked weak people, mostly people of business, people of statistics, people whose whole entire life revolved around doing nothing but just sitting at a desk and typing stuff, or just lawyers, people who wouldn't fight too hard before they were killed. Unlike the original Butcher, however, the copycat Butcher has a lot more words at his job. For one, the original Butcher was known for being precise with his cuts. He was very precise. This Butcher was all over the place. You could see multiple attempts of hacking, multiple attempts of cutting a limb off and not working, so he tried a different area to cut it off. Very, I guess you'd say, rookie. But he did get away for a very long time. Now, there was a description given out for him, which I will give in a moment. In terms of personality as well, for the original Butcher had no motive that anyone could at least find, especially since the fact that most of his bodies were John and Jane Doe's. There was really not much to go off of. With the copycat, well, it was really easy since he tended to maintain the bodies he chopped up, and it tended to go into different places, different fridges, just make sure that they were well kept. Of course, this copycat was very a very insecure man. It doesn't even take a professional psychologist to know that. To target the kind of people he did, you'd have to be very, very insecure. Now, time to go into the mind. Time to release a description of the killer, and then we'll go into the mind of the original butcher. So, the copycat killer was eventually seen. Again, he was very unplanned. He was very horrible at what he did, basically. I'm surprised he went 6 years without being caught. But a description of him was given, but where he was last seen, no one knows. He went missing. It's been weeks since he last attacked or last killed anyone. Here is a description. He wore a fully gray shirt, a black jacket, blue shorts, and last but not least, he wore glasses. What those glasses were, we don't know. But yeah, information is still being found out about him. But yeah, that is the description of the copycat killer. So, onto the mind of a killer. Now, with the original butcher, what I like to believe is, unlike other serial killers, he actually had a really good life growing up. Specifically when it came to his home life. I believe that his parents were really good parents. It wasn't his home life that turned him into a killer. It was his school life. Now, most people, of course, like to associate the butcher as a supernatural being who just kills from time to time. But I like to believe that if he is a supernatural, which ludicrous, baloney, no such thing. If he is supernatural in nature, he would have been turned supernatural at a young age, which makes me believe that he had a horrible school life growing up. As bad as someone can have it. Horrible teachers, horrible classmates. But I don't think that's what drove him over the edge. Because some of the many people who were identified, because again, sometimes cops really got lucky and found fresh bodies from the butcher. When people were able to identify some of the bodies, which was 7 out of a couple, I say 100 over the years, maybe more, maybe less. The people who were identified were Roger Hosevan, who was a construction company owner. Maria Rose, who owned a bakery shop. John Bradley, a cop, well, mostly an officer who retired, a retired officer to be specific. A judge by the name of Johnny Daisy, and others that I can't remember the names of right now. Most of those people had very different backgrounds, were from very different races, were different people in general. The bakery owner was known for not being a very good person. The cop was known for being a very good person. The construction site worker was known for just being a person. The judge, the construction site the owner of a construction site company. The judge seemed to be a greedy and corrupted judge, so it didn't seem like he's, again, targeting anyone specific. They all seem like random equal opportunity kills, which makes me think that this killer had a terrible upbringing, but the way he kills people, when he kills someone, he never kills someone with intention, with personal. It doesn't seem personal, is what I'm trying to say, which again makes me like to think that it wasn't because of the kinds of people he dealt with. While I think he did have a good life overall, something pushed him over the edge. What that something wasn't a person, though. Or at least not a certain type of person. That would then lead him to go on and target people that are like that. Now, on to what I think the Butcher wore. Now, what I think the Butcher wore was all black. There's a reason for this. The Butcher was known for attacking at night. No one ever saw him. No one ever saw him. There was no visual copycats. Welcome to Oregon. The country of the supernatural. It would also make sense why we don't have a face. He would be wearing all black. Therefore, we would have no facial description or no anything. Now, what happened to the original Butcher is what I'm assuming is old age finally got to him. After all, this is a person who's been around since the 1930s. Well, to be specific, 1939. and finished his serial killer run in 1999, making me think that old age finally got to him. Now, what I think he was like in life, I think he acted like a nice person to lure in more victims. That's what serial killers like to do. They like to act normal before eventually being caught. And I'm assuming that this butcher isn't a psychopath, nor a sociopath, but rather just a serial killer. People like to say he was a sociopath, but I don't think he was crazy in general. Sure, murderers have to be crazy to some extent, but not all murderers are psychopaths, let alone sociopaths, which makes me think he is just a normal person who likes to kill. But yeah, that was me taking you through who I think the butcher was in life, and this copycat who just seems to be pretending to be him. End of log 1. Next time, my good friend John Matthew, or is it? I forget his full name. I know Matthew is his last name. I just forget his first name. I think it's John. Yeah, John Matthew will be talking to you about the supernatural. This is a collaborative effort. I will be talking about serial killers and how to get into the mind of one, and my friend will tell you about the supernatural. I think his topic will be about skinwalkers, I believe. Or shapeshifter, I don't know. End of log 1.